And it brings us to what is happening in America these days. This massive witch hunt going on, using the excuse of some of the Trump supporters storming the Senate and the Congress.
Right, right.
Where do you see this entire thing unfolding? Because the what Twitter has done and what the big tech are doing in America, irrespective of whether you like or dislike Trump. I mean, I think Trump is a quite immature, clownish person,
Right.
but they have shown a trailer of the future where they can control the world,
Right.
and they can challenge the might of the president of America himself.
Right. Right. Right.
How do you see that?
So I have my own views on Trump, which I don't think are relevant at this point. Okay, he's done quite a few things, and therefore it's a mixed bag. But largely, I believe that he is a victim of poor optics. At the same time, his own tomfoolery at times really doesn't help his case. Okay, and like in most jurisdictions, perhaps the non-left is yet to master the art of better optics. Okay, and that's the case in every jurisdiction. I don't think there's a single jurisdiction, including Bharat, which is let's say an outlier to that particular rule. That's one. But coming back to your central question, I think there is a specific complex that we are not looking at. There was a point in the 60s and 70s where the military industrial complex was seen as the monster. Today, you're looking at the media industry complex, which is the monster. Okay, so this is a new MIC according to me. In fact, I would call it an MMIC, media military industrial complex. Okay, this is the high-tech sector, literally the cutting edge. Okay, and what is happening in United States, according to me, is fantastic. I hope it happens even more, and there's a very good reason for it. The reason is, what happens when mercantile interests take over national security and matters of policy is exactly what America is paying its price for, because their pursuit of happiness and unrestrained capitalism is coming back to haunt them, because now it shows that the money bags can call the shots at everything on every issue. Okay, now they will have to ask themselves, so if this form of let's say relationship between the wealthy and the people in power is going to haunt us in this fashion, and it's going to come back and bite us in this fashion, what is the alternative? Thank you. You will come back to the three-tier system at some day, where let's say you'll have someone who is red, someone who has the sword, and someone who has the money, and the others also. You will be forced to revisit this particular structure. You will force to take on this particular structure, because capitalism and the relationship between the wealthy aristocrat and the people in power is a direct consequence of the Protestant Reformation and the Peace of Westphalia. There is enough literature to basically say that the so-called combination to protect what is known as national interest, okay, what you're looking at today is the advanced version of that. And that advanced version is imploding because those who thought they were wielding power are now being told power is not in hands under any circumstances. You have been elected, but you're not in power. Okay, perhaps these are words that people in India must also pay attention to. If they don't, then India is going to proceed in that particular direction, because you don't even have an internal security apparatus that is robust enough to withstand the onslaught of a Google or a Facebook. Okay,
that's true.
What is holding the situation together is the support that the person at the top enjoys, which means that he's in a position to, and he can do a lot of things which Trump cannot in a divided country. Okay, if Trump had enjoyed the same kind of popularity as Sri Narendra Modi in India, then perhaps Trump would have been in a much better situation to address Facebook or any other institution. Fundamentally, the Republicans suck at optics. They have not been able to improve their game. Hollywood is against them, media is against them, the entire Eastern Seaboard from New York Times to Washington Post, everybody hates them, right? Coupled with the fact that within the Republicans, obviously there is not too much of a difference between a New York Democrat and a New York Republican. They effectively think on the same lines. They at best have issues with respect to economics, but on every other issue, they're all on the same page. So with such a system, frankly speaking, Republicans really are fighting a losing battle, because the traditional demographic is actually shrinking. Okay, and the other side has upped the game by saying, now we'll make this country a country for everyone. And that's a battle that you can't win. You certainly can't win, because demographics are against you. Okay, and in such a poor situation, you have a gentleman who goes about taking pot shots at every media entity without even maintaining dignity. Had he actually behaved better, I believe that the good things that he has done in retrospect will also have been appreciated, and the media's unfairness would have come out. This is the one point I truly believe that Mr. Modi has done better than Trump, notwithstanding the fact that Trump's ability to take on China, coupled with other factors, is vastly superior to what we have been able to do. There was a greater sense of purpose and a greater sense of clarity in the Trump administration with respect to what the true villain is or who the true villain is, not Russia, but China. Okay. I don't think that kind of a realization is there in Bharat. So there is a brilliant realization in America, but it is headed by perhaps one of the most clownish heads of state ever in the history. And here we have a dignified head of state, but perhaps the clarity of vision, the civilizational compass or a canvas is something that is missing here. That's my assessment of it. I don't know what others are going to say about this, but nevertheless, this is my position. I'm happy to debate on this. I will not run away from this position.
Yeah. But I slightly differ because the alliance between the state power and the wealthy capitalist is a very old thing. It has been going on for centuries now.
Correct.
Because capitalism is a pretty old system, unlike what the people believe. It's
Right.
a pre-industrial revolution system.
Correct.
So, but what we're seeing that this new phenomenon of big tech, the earlier wealthy capitalists never directly or brazenly challenged the state power in such a manner.
Right.
I think there's something else which is happening. The big tech are doing that because they know they can control the society as well.
Correct.
I think that's something we're not looking at. So how do we control them? How do we regulate them, especially in India?
Big tech's biggest advantage, apart from its reach, is its algorithmic approach. Okay. How can you ban a certain algorithm which is designed to hook people? You need to have certain public policy justifications for it. Okay. Now, the fact remains that if there is something addictive about, let's say, big tech, assume for a moment you choose to pool about $100 billion or $1 million into a certain technology, but the technology is not designed to hook people. All that money will go down, according to me, the tubes. Okay. But if fundamentally the product is designed in such a way that is meant to addict people, hook people, and you're hooked to that particular platform, okay, then the kind of power that you wield over mind space is unimaginable. Previously, television had that power. Now, social media through phones have that power. It has effectively rendered every other form of audiovisual communication useless. In fact, the laptop, according to me, has become useless. Everything has become useless. The mobile phone is perhaps the most powerful tool, and the Arab Spring proved it to some extent, but riots across India prove that on a regular basis. Okay. Therefore, mobile phone, big tech, AI, this is something that India must look at. But unfortunately, India is approaching the question of AI only from the perspective of what it is going to do to employment and human resource. It's not looking at the big picture, which is control over the mind, which is replacement of the mind. What do you do then? And more than control of the mind, let me call it control over consciousness. Okay. A country which has produced literature on consciousness, mental health, on civilization, on spirituality and soul, has not even understood the manner in which it is supposed to look at artificial intelligence and software. The one area or one sector where we think we are good, which is software, even there we have not been able to understand what is it that we must be doing with this. So I think India must have a separate, perhaps a task force of sorts, which looks at emerging technologies, not just hard technologies, but soft technologies which have tremendous penetrative power. Okay, both in terms of depth and scale and reach. And it must ask itself, what is the policy that we must come out with? Because whether you like it or not, other countries are better positioned to deal with it because their systems are even more robust. You as a poor country with very little awareness will be worst hit because your internal issues, identity related issues and external threats will effectively use all these situations to your detriment. You are not prepared for it. Okay. Imagine that China decides to come out with an app just like TikTok and other apps and somehow decides to penetrate the Indian mind. Okay. And it starts influencing the Indian mind in ways that we can't even fathom today, or decides to hook us. The ban on TikTok had such horrible reactions, disgusting reactions, that it was almost as if you had taken away ecstasy or heroin from a drug addict. Okay. That's the kind of impact these people had. People committed suicide. They came out with all sorts of Rothulu videos. Okay. So I think we are underestimating the power of big tech. I don't think India has still woken up to this particular idea. I think you should apply a design thinking approach to it and recalibrate your orientation to it. Stop looking at it purely from the standpoint of employment, access to technology. It is much beyond that. Because big tech is certainly looking at it in a slightly different way. And the way you're looking at it is very different. You're looking at it from a very utilitarian perspective. He's playing the long game. Okay, he is looking at the next 20, 30 years at the very least. And I'm being very conservative on that front. There are better informed people who can comment on that. So I would say India has a lot more to lose if it understands. Whether it has something to gain or not, I don't know, but it certainly has a huge disincentive if it does not pay attention to this. So a policy rethink is important. This is perhaps the most important aspect given its ability to quickly affect, influence, and change people's minds.